Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome yet again to another episode of Lunch Guide. I'm your host Chef Andy as usual, and today we are going to be bringing some festive magic to the kitchen. This is a beautiful season because particularly for this season we actually spend a little more time with our families at home, and this is particularly why I'm going to be enjoying showing you how to make the dish today. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make some very simple crepes, and for that I'm going to introduce some of my ingredients. So I've got some eggs here, I've got some all-purpose flour. In the pot here I've got some milk, I've also got some icing sugar, I've got some vodka, I've got some white sugar there, a bit of whipping cream, a bit of salt, some unsalted butter, some sprigs of mint there, a bit of honey, a bit of vanilla, and a bit of chocolate powder. So without further ado, I'm just going to give you this chance now to grab your pens and papers. Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back after the short commercial break, and when we do come back, we're just gonna go straight into it. See you in a short while. Welcome back ladies and gentlemen. We took a short commercial break and now I'm just about to start the process of showing you how to make your own crepes at home. Remember, like I mentioned in the introduction, this is a nice, beautiful, festive season, and I know most of you are definitely looking for different options to surprise your loved ones or surprise your kids, especially in the mornings or on those lazy weekends. And you might actually be looking at some different options of how to actually give your breakfast a bit of a flair. So now without further ado, I'm just going to start by making our mixture. So we're going to be making our crepe batter first. And for that I'll need some tools here. I'm going to be using this sieve. I'm just going to start with that just to make sure our flour is nicely sifted through. So just gonna give that a bit of a shake. So remember, crepe, just like most of you would call them pancakes at home, very particularly simple breakfast item you could serve to your family. I actually particularly love crepes myself, and I'm actually going to be showing you my very own particular favorite recipe. So we have about a cup of sugar in there. A cup of flour in there. I'm just going to add now about 2/3 of a cup of sugar. I'm also going to be adding a tiny pinch of salt. And to that we'll also be incorporating some of that vanilla. We're also going to be incorporating some of that butter, but because the butter is not melted, I'm actually going to melt it slightly in the microwave here. So we're just going to let that go for about 30 seconds. And in the bowl here, I'm also going to be adding about a cup of milk. So first of all, just going to use my whisk to just mix my dry ingredients together. Remember, particularly for this recipe, very important that you actually follow some very basic steps, which first of all would be making sure that your ingredients are mixed separately before incorporating them together. So as you can see, I started off by mixing my dry ingredients, and I'm just about now ready to mix my wet ingredients together. So to that, I'll be incorporating some butter here. I'm also going to be incorporating a bit of vanilla essence. And last but not least, a bit of milk. So I'm going to be going with about a tablespoon of butter, unsalted butter, about a teaspoon of vanilla essence, and about a cup of milk. And I'm just going to quickly whip those two together. And into that, I'm going to be cracking also 2 whole eggs. So very simple recipe, something you can be able to make in a span of 4 to 5 minutes to order. Right. So my egg, my milk, my vanilla, and my butter are now well mixed together. Now all we need to do is incorporate that into our flour mixture on the side. So I'm just going to use a whisk for that. If you don't have a whisk, you can actually also be able to work with a fork. Remember, the idea of getting a very good crepe batter is to make sure it's lump free first of all, which means it doesn't have any flour that hasn't been mixed in well. So very particular that you actually check on that. So we're just going to add that last bit of milk and butter. And definitely always take a bit of time to make sure you whip your butter really well. Remember, it's always first of all key that you make sure you don't have any lumps in there. And I'm just going to use the same bowl I had earlier. So I always like to run my mixture right through my sieve before I actually take it on into the pan. So this is just to make sure that there is no foreign bodies in my mixture. This is also to make sure if there were actually any granules of sugar that are still too big to dissolve into the mixture, I can actually be able to take them out at this stage. Remember, you can actually have instances where you have eggshells that actually fall into your mixture, so it's very handy to have a sieve with you when you're making your crepe butter or any butter for that matter. Now, last but not least, always remember to also scoop, or rather to use your whisk to just go through that little bit of mixture left at the bottom. And now this is definitely ready to go in. But because I'm going to be bringing a bit of a flair, I'm actually going to now split the mixture in two. So I'm just going to pour half on this side, and the one on this side, I'm just going to be incorporating a bit of the cocoa powder that I have on the side there. So like I said, very particularly simple technique of playing around with ideas, especially when making breakfast. Remember, breakfast is a very much important dish, very important dish of the day. It is actually the most important meal of your day. And I always insist, if you are going to be taking some time to make a good breakfast for your family, always try and put some love into it. Remember, this is the first dish of the day. This actually sets your mood, it sets your energy for the whole day. So it is very crucial that you actually get breakfast, top notch before you actually serve it. So like I said, I'm only going to be playing around with some of the techniques I'm definitely accustomed to using in this festive season. And particularly for my particular favorite, and this is one I have done over and over again, I love my pancakes served partly vanilla and partly chocolate on the same plate. Right, so simple as that. So and as you can see, I'm just going to use a spoon to show you. So very particular that your butter is very light. As you can see, it actually just pours really well off the side of the spoon. Also, another checkpoint to check as well, you could always run your ladle into your mixture, and I only use my finger and put a line across. As you can see, it takes about 4 to 5 seconds for the mixture to just roll over the indent that we put in with the finger. That's about enough. That's about as much attention you need to make sure, especially when you're working with butter. So this is a very good light butter. As you can see, it's runny, it's not lumpy. We sieved it, so it's very clean. Right. So to a hot pan, I'm just going to grab my pan and I'm just going to show you how to work your crepe. So very simple, 1 ladle full. All you do is just get the excess off using the sides of your bowl. All you do is put 1 ladle full right in the center of your pan. And all you're going to do at this stage now is move your pan around and just let the mixture work its way. Particularly very important to remember when you're making crepe. Remember, it's not always all in the butter. It's actually a whole general technique. Very crucial that you actually make sure your mixture can be able to run right around the pan. Also allows you to actually make sure you get a nice evenness to your a nice evenness and thickness to your crepe. So very, very important that you actually make sure your crepe mixture is ready from the beginning. I'm just going to grab a plate and we're just going to turn them onto the plate. So very, very simple when making crepes. Always observe from the top. You will be able to notice they should be able to actually be a bit of bubbles popping up. Very, very important to make sure that there's a nice beautiful ring of brown on the side. This is just signs that will start telling you that your crepe is just about ready. And all I'm going to do now is use my tongs just to loosen the sides there before we give it a turn. And as a side, very, very crucial to make sure your temperature is not too high. Remember, crepes cook really quick, so you don't really need too much fire for this. And I particularly like to turn mine by hand, so I'm just going to lift that up and drop it onto the pan. And it's simple as that. So as you can see, nice, beautiful, even color. The thickness is very, very light. This should actually just be able to slide off on your non-stick pan, particularly, or rather as soon as it hits, as soon as you turn it over. So generally 2 to 3 minutes cooking time for a regular crepe, or even faster if you're working on a very hot station or a very hot pan. And maybe about 5 to 6 minutes if you're going to be adding some raising agents and you're going to be turning that mixture into a flapjack mixture. So very, very simple. I'm gonna take my crepe and I'm just going to fold it onto the plate quarter way like that, and I'm just gonna set that aside, and I'm just going to continue with the same technique. So very, very simple. A full ladle full right in the middle of your pan. And all you do is just allow the mixture to work its way right around your pan like that. And as soon as you don't have any more mixture running through your pan, then you know it's about time to stop. Right. So I'm just going to continue making these beautiful crepes, and we're going to take a short commercial break. When we do come back, we are going to just go straight into the plating. I'm also going to use some techniques as well to finish off, which I am going to show you as we go along. I will also show you something really, really phenomenal, which is basically how to flambe your own pancakes at home. So we're going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we're just going to go into it. Don't touch the dial. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We took a short commercial break and I was just finishing off the crepe. So as you can see, a very beautiful contrast between a vanilla crepe and a chocolate crepe. For those who missed out on what we were doing, we actually made just a very simple crepe batter using some eggs, some butter, some sugar, some vanilla, and some flour, and some vanilla essence as well. And all I did was split the mixture in two and only added about a tablespoon of cocoa powder to the other. So I used just regular drinking cocoa powder. Do feel free to incorporate some chocolate, or maybe you could actually grate some cooking chocolate or some beautiful baking chocolate for that purpose. You should be able to actually get the same thing. Now, just to finish off, as I said, as I said before the break, I am going to be showing you some beautiful techniques of finishing off your crepes. So we are going to start with the first one, which is basically the flambe. So without further ado, we're just going to first of all get our pan nice and hot. So for this particular one, very, very simple. I'm going to be incorporating a bit of brown sugar. I'm going to be using also a bit of vodka. I'm also going to use a bit of honey. And so basically, very, very simple technique to doing your own flambe. First of all, you need to always make sure that you have a bit of alcohol. Remember, the whole idea of flambe is basically to get the flame up and to cook the alcohol down, but remember the idea is to actually flavor the dish as well. Also something also to be very cautious about, please do not try and flambe if you haven't had any prior experience or you haven't actually been able to try it before. Very particular to know that flambe can actually be very hazardous to you. So you might actually be able to watch it and see it being done on TV, but I do always insist, before you take the chance or before you try out to do some of the techniques we are using, remember, I'm a trained chef, I'm a trained professional. I am going to show you some particular bits and pieces of taking precaution when you do so, just so that you don't actually injure yourselves at home. So we have a nice hot pan going on the side here. And now I'm just going to start by sprinkling just a bit of brown sugar. So this is just regular brown sugar. All right, simple as that. And then I'm also going to be drizzling about a teaspoon of honey. So just lightly drizzle that around your pan. All right, simple. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crepe now and I'm just going to lay it on top of the caramel, and I'm just going to give that a bit of time to heat. So you should actually be able to start getting that caramel flavor coming through before you actually get to the flambe stage. So I'm just going to give that a bit of a slide there with my hand just to make sure. So if I can be able to lift this and show you the bottom end, as you can see, it's just starting to caramelize. It's got a nice, beautiful brown color. Now, particularly if you're flambeing, very particular that you actually get your alcohol in just as soon as your pan starts to smoke. Remember, you do need that bit of that bit of heat. So very simple. To this stage, I'm just going to slide my crepe slightly up to one side of the pan. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add my alcohol, and as you can see, the flame just does the rest for you. Maybe we could do a little more. I'm just going to put a bit more there. So basically, always allow your pan to get your pan nice and hot before you get your alcohol in there. Remember, you're actually trying to cook off the flames. And once it gets to that stage, very simply, just start to fold your crepe. And this is now ready to serve. So I'm just going to turn off the heat. And I'm just going to roll that over like that. As you can see, nice, beautiful color coming from the caramelizing of the brown sugar. So I'm just going to take that. We're just going to set it on a plate. So as I said, very simple technique. And to that, I will just garnish with a small sprig of mint there. So that would be a very simple way of how you can actually be able to make your own flambe. Now I'm just going to show you another different technique as well. And this one is very simple. This is more of kid friendly. This is actually for the toddlers or for people who have particularly no liking to any dairy products with their crepes. And it's a very simple technique. All I do is open up one of the chocolate crepes, and to a sieve I'm going to add a bit of icing sugar. And I'm just going to dust that right around the insides. And then all we are going to do is fold it a third in, and we're just going to flip the other parcel on the other side, and I'm just going to fold it the same way into a parcel just like that. And then you could just basically finish that off on a plate. And you can actually stuff that with some fruit. You can always go with some berries. You can go with some fresh chopped fruits. It will actually go just as well. And just for the last and final one, if you do have maybe a bit of cocoa powder that you had remaining, also not a bad technique to finish them off. So just the same way we did with the icing, I do with some cocoa powder. And this we're actually going to be a little more generous with the topping. So very, very simple. And I always like to just finish that off with a nice sprig of mint. So ladies and gentlemen, very, very simple recipe. I think now most of you have been able to see how crepes are done. It's a very simple technique, as I said. I know now you're all definitely going to be able, or you are going to be looking forward to be making some beautiful crepes this season. So thank you for watching. My name is Chef Andy. You have been tuned in to Lunch Guide, and I have definitely enjoyed the segment today. So as I said, just a bit of an eye-opener for those of you who are going to be looking for ideas this festive season. And from the studios and myself, have a lovely season.